Welcome back to Rick's Hobby Hut, guys, and in this episode we're going to finish off some of the centerpieces for Adam's table, Ista's Mourn.
Anvil of War! Rick's Hobby Hut!
A couple of weeks ago we had released the video on Ista's Mourn table, the table that Adam had created for our sponsors at Red Dragon Comics. So I had reached out to him and I had said I wanted to do the Jade statues for the table. So in this video I'm actually going to take you through a very simple process on how to create these Jade statues. It's not complicated, and we're going to be using some inks for this. So we're going to jump right into it, and I've already coated the piece in Chaos Black from Citadel. And now we're going to go ahead and do a zenithal highlight using a neutral gray ink from Liquitex. Once that zenithal highlight is dry, we're actually going to be adding in the texture now to this piece. Because we're going to blend the texture in a little bit more with the airbrush in the next couple of steps after this. So what you're going to need for this is you're going to need a household sponge. And in actuality, don't use a household sponge unless you dampen it first, because I was a dum-dum in the beginning of this. And I had started using just the regular household sponge for this. And I didn't actually soak it, and I didn't understand why it was all getting gloopy and all mashed up, and it just turned into a nasty mess with this. So I ended up actually switching to just a piece of foam from those blister packs that you get at the stores. From the old Warhammer, I have a bunch of Infinity models, so it comes in that box as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dab the black, the white, and the gray the same way I did in my battle damage effects video. If you want to check that out, go ahead and check that out. But I'm using the same process as that. There's no difference. I'm just choosing where I want to add the texture, where I don't want it. Don't go too uniform with it, because we are doing this kind of jade stone look to it. So just be random with the pattern and make sure you get it everywhere that you want and that you're happy with it. Once you're done and happy with the texture addition, what we're going to do is we're just going to go in and we're going to use a white. I'm using Vallejo Game white for this. And we're going to dry brush the edges just to make the contrast pop a little bit more and add a little bit more highlights to some certain areas. Now I had gone ahead and I had used Helion Green, the dry from Citadel. And I'm not going to actually put in the video because it didn't make any change in effect. What I tried to do is I just try to use the green itself to give a little bit more of a highlight over the white in certain places. But once you see in the next step, it just all disappears. So there's no point in doing that. Just use the white. I was trying to be a little bit coy and add a little bit more definition to the model, but it didn't work. So you live and you learn. Now that we've finished with all the dry brush, we're going to go ahead and what we're going to do is we're going to blend the texture in along with the dry brush. And for this, we're going to be using the titanium white ink from Liquitex through the airbrush. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to select areas where I want to blend the texture a little bit more and just bring it all together so that it's nice and uniform across, yet you still have the pattern of that jade stone amongst it. Once we blend it in with the Liquitex white titanium, we're going to go ahead, let that dry, and we're going to take the Vallejo Game green ink. And what we're going to do is we're just going to spray the entire model. I'm going to start with the zenithal spraying technique from the top down, just to make sure it goes where I want it to go. And we're just going to coat the entire piece in Vallejo Game Green ink. And as you can see, that green ink has just taken this model from like a gray stone statue to a very vibrant green jade effect with all those textures that we've added in and the dry brush. And this is why I like inks, because you can work everything in grayscale and then come back in and you're just going to add that one color and not even have to worry about painting or blending, and you've got that beautiful texture in that jade effect. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start doing the metallics. Now I've gone ahead and I've masked off just the back portion of the model where I don't want any overspray from this metallic paint. And what I'm going to be using for this is I'm going to be using the gunmetal paint from Vallejo Game Air. Just spray that in, be nice and neat. It's a lot easier to airbrush it in than paint it in. It takes more time to paint it in, as you will see in the next steps with the trim and everything else. Now that that paint is dry, I'm going to remove the masking and I'm going to hand brush in just the top part of it and the bottom, kind of where the metal stance is coming out of the pillar at the bottom. Now that we have that painted, we're going to go ahead and use Retributor armor, and we're just going to paint the trim on the shoulder pads and pick out some select details of the model with the gold. And make sure you put your headphones in for this, because it's actually going to take a lot of time. I did about 3 or 4 coats just to make it nice and even with the Retributor armor across all these parts. Now for the rest of the metallics, I'm just using my favorite metal of all time yet again, which is the chainmail silver from Vallejo Game Air. And I'm going to select those metal bits across the model. And again, the Vallejo Game Air is actually pretty decent at coating just by paintbrush without running it through the airbrush. So I only did about 2 coats of the metallic for this. At this point, I'm also going to go in and select the vents on the actual pedestal at the bottom of the model. And I'm going to use Hashut copper just to give some variation in the metallics down on those vents. The next step is going to be very simple. We're going to take Agrax Earthshade and we're going to wash all of that gold. Be liberal with the Agrax Earthshade. You don't have to worry about being very diligent with it, because we're going for, it's a larger model. We're also going for a more of a burnished gold look. And this is how I do all my golds with this wash technique. And we're just going to coat it with the Agrax Earthshade. And like I said, be very liberal with it. Don't be afraid to slop it on there. I'm actually using calligraphy brushes for this, because they soak up a little bit more of the shade, and they kind of just let it flow onto the model a little bit more. Now that that's finished and dried, we're going to go in and we're going to use Nuln Oil on the gold again. And this is where that burnished gold effect is really going to come through. I don't know what it is between the Agrax Earthshade and the Nuln Oil, but I just love the way, used in combination on a gold, it gives a really nice burnished look. And I just love it. That's why I use it as my main gold metallics on all my models, just because of the way it shines and just the color brings out. So go ahead, again, same process with the Agrax Earthshade. Be liberal with the Nuln Oil coating. We want it to flow into the recesses and pool up and still take a little bit out here and there, but you want it a little bit more because it is a larger model and it's going to add that definition. I'm also at this point going to take the Nuln Oil and I'm going to go select some details on the model, some of the recesses that I want a little bit more contrast in, and I'm just going to use it not sparingly, sorry, very liberal in those areas, just to bring out a little bit more definition in the model itself. Now that the washes are done and all the details are complete with those washes, it's pretty much tabletop ready. You could go in and just do the base and put it on the table and Bob's your uncle. But we're just going to add some more details to it. And what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to actually be dry brushing the back portion of it. And I'm using the Mithril Silver, I believe it's called, from Citadel. Because my Necron compound is dried up and I can't get more right now. So I'm just going to be using this for now. And again, it's a dry brush. Wipe it off and dry brush very roughly along the back portion of that metal and where you want the highlights to be. Now that's done, I'm going to just do in reverse the same thing I did for the golds and metals for the rest of the model. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to select some details on the cogs and gears on the back of these statues, just to make it pop a little bit more, especially I guess it's the Mechanicum, whoever sculpted these or created these on the bottom here. Whoever from the Mechanicum created these models. So I want to make those pop and you can look at it and be like, oh, this guy created this statue. Now that all the golds are done, all the details are done, all we got to do is do the base. And I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. It's just a simple matter of spraying the base in black and then dry brushing and adding some flock onto it. Nothing crazy, it's all stuff we've done before, so I'm not going to bother showing that part of the video. But as far as I'm concerned, this is the finished piece and it's ready to go on the table.
Sponsored by
That does it for this episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And these finish the centerpieces for the Istaa's Mourn table. So until next time, please like, share, and subscribe, and keep your paint on the palette.